Shabbat Shalom. I greet you in the name of the Most High. My name is Brother Yadan. Today's lesson will be on who are the true biblical Hebrews. Not the Jews, the biblical Hebrews. Now, I'm going to start freshly with the book starts in the book of Genesis. There are 66 books in the King James Bible, but there used to be 80 until the 1800s when 14 were taken out deliberately. It was taken out way before the Nicene Councilors. Those are the people with Constantine that altered the Bible, took out all of the bishops, all of the old saints, and repainted the portraits of thousands of years. That was with Constantine, with the Council of the Nicene. They called it Nicene. They altered the Word of God. Before there were even popes or even emperors, there were 3 black popes. Before that, there were 3 black emperors. But the old saints saw in the continent called Africa, how the Europeans were wiping out the entire history of the true Hebrews. And there was a big debate, a big dispute, a devastation took place. But when the old saints opened up the book, these were their words. And I'm going to go word for word because I'm going to read from the scriptures. I'm going to start with the first book of the Bible, which is Genesis. Genesis in the 2nd chapter state these words. It says, in the chapter 6, the 2nd chapter, it said, "But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust from the ground." Now, look at the word dust. Dust in Hebrew means afad, the darkest part of the earth, which is the clay, and it is black, dark. And he breathed into the nostrils the breath of life, and man then became a living soul. A living soul formed man of the dust, the afad of the earth. Look up the word afad, A-F-R-A-A-F-A-R-E-D, afad. Now, I want to take my time because I want to make sure that no one feels that I'm taking their Jesus. I'm not stealing your Jesus. I'm only going to put emphasis on who you are. Now, I want to go to the book of Exodus. Exodus is chapter 2. Be patient with me because there are some things that I'm going to take my time because I want you to stay with me on this. In the book of Exodus, chapter 2, verses 16 to 19, I believe it is. Let me make sure, 16 to 19. Now listen to this very carefully. Now when Moses fled from the Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water. They filled their troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Ruel, their father, his father also was named Jethro, he said, "How is it that ye are come so soon?" In those days, there were more than one name, Jethro, Ruel, which are the same 2 people. And this is what the daughter said. The daughter said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us to water the flocks. And then Ruel said to his daughters, "Where is he? Why did you leave this man? Call him, that he may eat bread." And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Zipporah. Now Moses was mistaken from it for an Egyptian. Now, what color were the Egyptians in those days? You can go back as 4,500 years, and you can see everything in the land of Egypt, even the slaveries that they brought into the land. I have pictures of those. The Egyptians slaved our people, the Hebrews, in shackles. And every painting there in the land of Egypt, there is no Caucasian. There's only people of color that looks like you and me. So, therefore, Moses being mistaken for an Egyptian, what color was that? What color are the Egyptian, the true Egyptian that you see throughout the land of Egypt and Cairo? There's no such thing as a Caucasian portrait painting on the sepulchres or anything of the tombs. It is all people of color, even their slaves, which were us. Now I'm going to go one step further and go with you to also Exodus chapter 4, verses 6 through 8. Now this is what it tells me. And the Most High said to Moses, "Put forth thy hand and take it by the tail, and put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, had appeared unto them." And the Lord said, "Furthermore, put now thy hand in thy bosom." And he put his hand in his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. Now, if you remember in the movie that we've seen since we were children, it came out in something like 1956, The Ten Commandments, which starred the great guy, Charlton Heston. Now, those things that was asked in the movie, it was one, when he put that snake down, the staff, and it turned to a snake, good. And he turned the water to blood, good. But there was one miracle that they did not show in that movie. And I didn't know if you were aware of this or not. But the one thing you read in the Bible itself, it says that when Moses stuck it into his hand, into his bosom, it came out white leprosy as snow. But when he returned it back into his bosom, it turned as his normal flesh, which was your color. Now, how can white people turn leprosy if they were white as snow already? Impossible. Think about it. Stop letting people convince you that they are right and you're wrong. I have a ways to go right now, because there are things that you must understand, that you are God's chosen people. I'm emphasizing this to my heart because I'm going to go one step further, and I'm going to go with the book of Job. Job, the book 30:30 Job. Now go along with me, as I always said in the past, get your Bible, get your pen, and get your pencil or paper, pen and paper, pencil, whatever, and listen to what our Father tells us when we read his words very closely. In the book of Job, chapter 30, verse 30, this is his words. He said, "My skin is black upon me, comma, and my bones are burned with heat." What color was his skin? He said, "My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat." I did not write it. I did not do this. This is what the Most High is telling you. You didn't understand it because you were never taught it, but here it is. I'm going to move up one step further. I'm going to go to the book of Solomon. Everybody know about the awesome man named King Solomon. King Solomon. I'm going to the first chapter, and I'm going to read the fifth and sixth verse. This is what I want you to know. No. I'm going to go up a little bit further so you really understand what I'm saying. Now, this is the first chapter of King Solomon, and I'm going to get to 5 and 6. I got to read the first 4 first. The Songs of Songs, which is Solomon's. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine. Because of the savor of thy good ointment, thy name is as an ointment poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love thee? It said, draw me, we will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than thy wine. The upright love thee. I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, that is Jerusalem in your word, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon, look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard have I not kept. I could go and read further and further, but I'm only going to the particulars because it's something that you yourselves, over these many years, have not looked and validated yourself. So when I move over from Solomon's, I go over to Lamentations. Lamentation kind of tells you a lot about what we need to understand about who we truly are and our color. Now I'm going to Lamentations chapter 4. Lamentations chapter 4, verses, I think it's verses 2. What is it? 2, Lamentation chapter 4, verse 2 to 8, I think. I'll start with verse 2. The precious sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold, how are they esteemed as earthen pitchers, the work of the hands of the potter. Even the sea monsters draw out the breast. They give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my people is become cruel, like the ostriches in the wilderness. The tongues of the sucking child cleaveth to the roof of his mouth. For thy thirst the young children ask bread, and no man baketh unto them. They did feed delicately and desolately in the street. They were brought up in scarlet embrace in dunghills. For the punishment of the iniquity of the daughter of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom, that was overthrown as in a moment, and no hand stayed on her. Her Nazarites were purer than snow. That don't mean the color, pure. She was innocent. They were whiter than milk. They were more ruddy in body than rubies. Polishing was of sapphire. What are rubies? What is polishing of sapphire? Their visage, meaning their face, is blacker than coal. They are not known in the streets. Their skin cleaveth to their bones. It is withered. It is become like a stick. Who turned black in the heat? Who turned black in the famines, in the distress of all of the things that wither you away? White folks get whiter, black folks get blacker. Now, if any of you sitting up here thinking for one moment that I'm trying to bash the white race, then you have a problem and you don't know me at all. I am descendants of many peoples, from the Indians. I am a Hebrew. I have mixture cultures in my race, the Orient, the Muslims, the Caucasians, and I love them all. When you look at me, look at love. There's no hate in me. There's only reasoning of sanity that I want to share with you. Because you've been beaten down so long that your identity had become a stigma. It become an asterisk behind your name. You are marked. Not the mark of the beast, but you are marked. Now, when I go to Lamentations, I love Lamentations because Lamentations gives you so much understanding of who we are. And I skip down to one verse, and that's chapter 5. When I read chapter 5, I go to the 10th verse, and I want to say these things to you because you need to know these things about yourself. Everything I've read to you from this point on, we're discussing God's chosen people and their color. And it's important to know your color. Listen to this in Lamentations chapter 5, verse 10. It says, our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. As I said, famine, droughts, and all those things, it will turn you blacker than you already are. As I said, I love Lamentation, but I love the book of Daniel also. And when I go to the book of Daniel, I like to bring these things to you in the book of Daniel. Daniel, what is it? Daniel chapter 7, I'm going to start with. Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7, verses 9 through 10. Here we go, 9 to 10. Listen very carefully now. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like the pure wool. It says, the hair of his head like the pure wool. What people on the planet have hair like wool? It says his throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Sounds good, don't it? Now, let me do one more thing for you. Daniel is letting you know some things right here. But he also tells you to go to his 10th book in the book of Daniel. Now, when I get to the 10th book of Daniel, I get to the verse 6. Now, listen to this very carefully. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as the lamps of fire, and his voice and his words were like the multitudes of a strong sound. Now listen to me, go back to this one more time. It says, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass. What color is polished brass? That's you again, Daniel telling you. Daniel saw vision. Daniel saw things that we wouldn't see again until we get to the book of Revelation. Daniel, the visions were so clear. He said, my arms and my feet are like color to polished brass. This is Daniel, the one that they make movies about, that they put him in long blonde hair, dark hair, never locks, never anything of a color. Now, I'm going to go to Amos. Amos goes really directly to those that are completely, I would say, more so in disbelief. Now, when I go to the book of Amos, this is what I come up with. The book of Amos. Let me find Amos. What chapter was Amos? Be patient with me. I think it's chapter 9, verse 7, if I remember right. Amos chapter 9, verse 7. Now, listen carefully now. I like to go slow. This one's going to take a little longer because I do like to go slow. This is what the Most High tells his chosen children. He said, "Are you not as the children of Ethiopians unto me?" He said, "Are you not as children of the Ethiopians unto me? O children of Israel," said the Most High, "have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from the captor, and the Syrians from the Ker?" He's telling you, are you not as children the color of those Ethiopians? Now tell me, what color are the Ethiopians? They look like me. They look like you. They're the children of Ham. We looked a lot alike. And I have another presentation I would like to go to prove through science, through Egyptologists that go back and will research from the children of slaves that were in this country in the 1600s to go back to the slaves that were in Egypt and made comparison to the skulls of the slaves that were Hebrews in Egypt and the slaves here in America, and they were compatible. Their skulls matched. The Egyptian head were not as long as the Hebrews. Proven in 1840 by Gilden. Now, I'm going to go a little modern now. I'm going to step up to Acts chapter 13. I'm getting close. Be patient with me. I'm getting very, very close. This is all about color right now. Not about trying to put anyone down or say I'm better than you. It's about color because we've been misled and we've been so confused. Now, this is when we talk about the book of Acts chapter 13. Now, this is the very first missionary that was sent out from the chosen people. Now, there were churches, they said. There was a church that was in Antioch. Certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger. See, when I learned what that really meant, it wasn't just saying Simeon that was called Niger. Actually, they called him black. That's how black he was. Simeon was called Niger. He was called black. Simple as that. He was from Nigeria. He was called black. And Lucius of Cyrene. Where's that? That's in the western part of Africa. And Manon, which had been brought up with Herod, the Tetrarch. He was an Edomite. And they were of color also, Edomite. Edomane, not Edomites, Edomane. Now, that was the first missionary. And we're looking at a missionary that perhaps could have been predominantly black, all black. What did it tell you? That tell you that you are important and that you are a factor in what God has given you, a reputation, a name to honor him, his chosen people. Now, I'm going to go one more. I got two more verses to recite to you on color. And as I said before, I am not a man that despises anyone because of color. Because for one blood, he said in the same book of Acts, he made every nation of men that they should dwell upon the face of the earth. Now, there was a chosen people because he had to have a chosen people to lead the rest of the world back to him. That's why he chose us. Now, I'm going to the book of Acts. Acts chapter 21, verses 37 and 38. It's a long story. That book has about 40 different verses in them. But I'm only going to read two because I think it's significant that I read these two instead of reading you 40 verses. Now listen to this. I'm going to go to 37. Now this was Paul. His name is really Brother Shual, but the English name is called Paul, but his Hebrew name is called Shaul, Brother Shual. Now, he was in this land. He was teaching, and he was teaching the people about the Most High Son. And they claimed that he was blasphemy, speaking in other names and calling other people gods that he shouldn't have been calling God. And then when they were trying to annihilate him and beat him and stone him, then comes some centurion. The Roman centurions came out of the barracks, and they grabbed Paul and they're about to take him back to the castle. And all of a sudden, Paul stopped him, and he said these words. He said unto the chief captain, he said, "May I speak unto thee?" He asked him a question. And the centurion said, "Can you speak Greek?" Now, I'm going to stop right there because that may not seem very important to you right now. But he said, "Can you speak Greek?" Now, if Paul had a look like a Greek or a Roman, why would he ask him that? Because that was the language at the time, Greek. Well, can you speak Greek? Think about it. Can you speak Greek? And Paul said, yes, in other words. Then the centurion said these words. He said, "Are you not that Egyptian which before these days made an uproar and led it out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers?" But Paul said, "I'm a man which am a Hebrew of Tarsus, the city of Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people." And they let him speak to the people. So it's obvious that Paul, being a citizen of the Roman Empire, and also a Hebrew at the same time, from the tribe of Benjamin. Can you speak Greek? It may not sound important when you're reading and ministers are going by these verses and not really let them marinate into their thought. They're just skipping right through them and not telling you the truth. Paul stood up, Brother Shual, and he silenced them all. He spoke to them in the Hebrew tongue and told them that which was to come. Now, this is my last verse. And the reason I'm making a lot of emphasis on this is because I have a lot of brethren from all 5 colors: white, black, brown, red, and yellow. And I love every one of them. I love my children because children, if they're trained up in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. That's why racism should have been destroyed. We'd have been had this thing together. We'd have been had the people understanding to serve the one God, Yeshua HaMashiach, his son. Now this is my last verse, but it's a very important verse because I started with the first chapter of Genesis, and then I maneuvered all the way until I'm going to the last chapter now. The last chapter is Revelation. Revelation, the end times, when the Most High said that he would show us all things. Now, when I go to Revelation, I'm going to tell you where I'm going to go with Revelation. I'm going to go with the very first chapter of Revelation. And I'm going to read the 13th and the 15th verse. Now, listen to me very carefully. These are talking about the 7 candlesticks, and you know what the candlesticks are. In the midst of the 7 candlesticks, there was one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt above the paps with a golden girdle. Now here we go. His head and his hairs were white like wool. Who had wool again? Hair? Who had wool hair? And it was as white as snow. And his eyes were as a flame of fire. And his feet like unto fine brass. This is the Messiah. This is the Messiah. This is John telling us who he is. Yachanan. They call him John in English, but his real name is Yachanan in Hebrew. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they were burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many rivers. Oh my Most High, how you explain it so well to tell people who you are. You are not Sergio Borgia. You're not Leonardo da Vinci's lover. You're not a lunatic that robbed and your father, Pope Alexander VI, designed this portrait to be made to alter the portrait that had been noted as a true Yeshua HaMashiach. You put your Jesus in his place. You took his name and you altered his name. Because I'm going to say this before I leave. Gabalitos, 1551. He was a Roman bishop. He was a so-called, what they called him, he was a Roman, it was Roman something anyway. But anyway, he created the letter J. And I'm going to say this and then I'm going to leave because I want to make sure you understand this.